All right, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Tu B'Shvat. Hope you're doing okay today. Excited to learn a Rashi together with you on the second aliyah of this week's Parsha of Yisro, important Parsha for all of us, the Parsha of Matan Torah, the Parsha of Aseres HaDibros. Lots of interesting Rashis. I'm sad that we missed some of the first aliyah Rashis, but we're on to the second aliyah today. And I just want to do two quick Rashis with you on this aliyah. In the beginning of the aliyah, we learn about Yisro's interaction with Moshe Rabbeinu, his advice to Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayhi mimacharas vayeshev Moshe lishpot es ha'am. There's a big question what mimacharas is, the next day of what? So it could be the next day after Yom Kippur, after he comes down with the luchos, the official granting of the Torah. But the next day, whatever that means, Moshe sits to judge the people, Vayamod ha'am Moshe min haboker ad ha'erev, and they're standing upon him for judgment, waiting for judgment from the morning to the evening. And Moshe's father-in-law takes a little bit of pity on him, on the nation, and doesn't like what he sees. Vayarcho sein Moshe es kol asher hu oseh la'am. He sees everything that he is doing to the nation. In this case, it means probably what Moshe is doing to the nation. And he doesn't like what he sees. What is this thing that you're doing to the people? Why are you sitting alone and having the entire people upon you from the morning to the evening? If I would ask someone cold, without looking at the Rashis, without looking too carefully at the Psukim, what is going on here? What's Yisro's concern? What's his accusation or critique? And how does he attempt to resolve it? I think most people would tell you, Yisro is worried about the people. It's not fair to the people. The people are waiting too long, and perhaps he's concerned about Moshe Rabbeinu. The pasuk comes later in the Torah, Nabol Tibol. You can't stand this. You can't withhold this. It's too much for one person to take. So maybe he's concerned about the people. Maybe he's concerned about Moshe Rabbeinu. And what he's concerned about is the delay in judgment. One person can't handle all of this. Because the people are waiting from morning to evening, and that's not an efficient judicial system. That comes even from the psukim that come here, as well as a little bit later. But Rashi has a slightly different take on what's going on here, which I think is really interesting. He picks up on the dichotomy here of Vayeshev and Vaya'amod twice in these psukim. Vayeshev Moshe lishpot, he sees Moshe sitting to judge. Vaya'amod ha'am Moshe min haboker ad ha'erev, and the nation is standing upon Moshe. You could easily overlook those two words because colloquially we referred to someone sitting in judgment, right? Because judges often sit. And standing, you imagine people standing in line, standing to wait, standing upon him. You may not take these two words literally, and you may not even notice these two words because they're sort of part of the colloquial way we would tell this kind of story. In the next pasuk, we see it again in his question. Madua ata yoshev levadecha v'chol ha'am nitzav alecha. Why are you sitting and everyone is standing? So Rashi hones in on the dichotomy of these words and zeroes in on this being the critique of Yisro. Vayamod ha'am yoshev kemelech v'chulam omdim. He's sitting like a king. Moshe's sitting like a king, and everyone else is standing. V'huk shahadavar li Yisro. This was very difficult for Yisro. Shahaya mizalzel bichvodan shel Yisrael. It seemed to Yisro like Moshe was denigrating the people. And he even chastises him for it. He rebukes him for it. He says it even more clearly. If here it's Vaya'amod, here it's Madu Ata. He's accusing him. Madu Ata Yoshev. Why are you sitting and the rest of the people are standing? If you look at the accusation, it's really not focused on min haboker ad ha'erev, as someone would probably tell you at first blush when looking at these psukim. The focus is really on Yoshev and Nitzav. And Yisro's accusation here is not general critique of the judicial system. It's not general concern for Moshe's well-being. It's not general concern even for the Jewish people's well-being, having to stand so long waiting for their judgments, waiting for their psak din. It's a much more specific concern over here. It's a much more specific critique. It's a critique that Moshe is not treating the people respectfully. It's not what we would expect to hear. Moshe Rabbeinu puts his life on the line for the people. He's the consummate leader who takes the people seriously. So it's a little bit strange, but that is what Rashi claims over here was Yisro's concern. And I think it's a very interesting take. I don't know exactly what to make of it or how to broaden or how to connect it to the rest of Psukim or the story, but it's certainly an interesting take that I wanted to show you, perhaps a different glance at this story, at what was going on in Yisro's head as a leader himself, trying to understand the hierarchy between leaders and followers, between someone in power and someone who's not in power, and how that hierarchy works, and how it works in a respectful way, in a proper way, in a kavodic way. So I think that's an important dynamic to analyze here in the story as well. Of course, if Moshe was doing this, he was probably doing it inadvertently. I don't think Moshe Rabbeinu would purposely be mezalzel b'chvodan shel Yisrael when he's always out to support kvodan shel Yisrael. But in this case, perhaps he was making a mistake, as leaders do. I think that's an important theme here as well. In all of these parshios, we've seen it in a couple of Rashis that we studied together, some we haven't studied, which is that the Torah tries to portray Moshe and Aaron as humans, not as gods, not as demigods, as people who are fallible, as people who come from regular birth, a mother, a father. They're regular human beings, and they're not to be deified, despite the fact that they're great leaders. And I think that comes through here in this Rashi as well, in a slightly different vein. As Yisro levels his critique at Moshe Rabbeinu, I think what it ends up showing us is that Moshe Rabbeinu is not necessarily this horrible person trying to be mezalzel b'chvodan shel Yisrael, but rather a person who might have looked past this one detail that he could have been more careful about, and might have even made a mistake, but a mistake that could easily be corrected and improved for in the future. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day. Stay safe, stay warm, and happy to Shvat again to everybody.
Thank
you.
You too, Rabbi.